Hi, Katie. How are you doing today?
Hi, I am doing good, but I'm nervous.
Oh, no news. And with the and I really, but to get into this, yeah, met you. We virtually met over a year ago. We've chatted over over a year. We've met over Zoom. We've had so many fun conversations. I've gotten to know you. You're very active on LinkedIn. I love reading your content and your comments. And yeah, you've gotten more into producing more content yourself, which we'll talk about in a little bit, like your LinkedIn journey and what you think about it. But yeah, I just wanted to let you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience.
Yeah, so I think we've done like several coffee chats too, because I remember we did one early where my son was still like an infant. And so that would have been like almost 2 years ago. But yeah, so my background is in chemistry. I went to college at Georgia Tech and started out in the power industry, working for Southern Research. So I was traveling around to a lot of power plants, collecting coal samples, ash, wastewater, gypsum, limestone, bringing it back to the lab and analyzing it. And power plants have all sorts of, requirements of their emissions and stuff. And then I was also doing like emissions testing for metals and certain gases. And then about I stayed there for about 5 years, and then the last 10 years, I was running an analytical chemistry lab for a chemical company, and so I'd get waters from oil fields and industrial water treatment and run all those. I would be creating the chemicals for these companies or for the companies so that they could use them out in the field, like scale inhibitors, corrosion inhibitors, biocides, everything just to protect the system and to make sure everything flows correctly. And I'd do countless other tests too, but it was a lot of fun just running everything, doing all the math, having something different to do like every day. And now I am trying to pivot from chemistry to data analytics. So I'm starting that journey as my next part of my life.
Yeah, yeah. And what did you need to get into being a chemist? I think you have a chemistry degree, but tell us about more about how would one even get into that type of work and field?
So for me, I picked chemistry because I had a really good high school chemistry teacher, and he just really sparked my interest. I had him for just general chemistry and then AP chemistry, so I had him twice. And then I was the teacher's pet, so I like hung out with the chemistry and biology teachers during between classes and like during breaks, and I even did like a little I don't know what was called like a teacher work session where I just for a period, I was able to help the teacher and prepare all his like, his samples for the next lab or something. So that was fun, and then I went to college for it because to me, it was just I liked the math, I liked the problem solving, I liked just the the discovery part of it, like, you make cool things, you get to do cool tests. So my first career goal was to be a lab manager and just run a lab, have all the instruments to run. And so
Wow.
I had a lot of fun college classes with that. I think one of my favorites was like radiochemistry, where I got to learn about all the radioactive type of stuff. And then I pretty much had labs like every semester. So I was working like a full-time job as my classes and labs, and then I had, like, a full-time job using Excel doing all my lab reports after after my classes, so it was a lot of work, but it was very well worth it.
Wow, you knew early on you wanted to do that, and you have a lot of lab experience all throughout college. It was funny. I was actually really good in chemistry too, and I debated not necessarily going to chemistry. I was going to do chemical engineering, but the school I was going to didn't offer it. So I think it's interesting that I think a lot of people who are good at science, they would go more the biology route,
So,
right?
okay, I did not wanna do biology because biology is all memorization, chemistry is all patterns, and patterns are way cooler than memorizing things, and I see patterns everywhere and is just way better for me, and the periodic table is put together as a giant pattern. So
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's more about discovering and taking what you know and applying it versus, and same thing. I didn't really enjoy memorizing lots and lots of things, which no shame to the people in the medical industry, but,
No, no,
they
it's
have to do a
if
lot of
that's
that.
what you like, go for it, but that was not what I liked, and I also didn't wanna be a chemical engineer because chemistry is all the little small scale stuff. Engineering, you're blowing that up to a big scale, and you lose out on all the testing and the just, like, trying to
That's
figure out
true.
what works.
They're not in a lab.
Yeah, so I didn't wanna do that, plus it had way more complicated math, they had to take a lot more math classes, but I got to do all the extra lab classes, and that's what I enjoyed more.
Wow, wow. So you knew in high school, you pursued it all throughout college, and then you start working in that industry. And what was it like being, I mean, I'm sure just like in the engineering fields, is pretty male dominated. Um, yeah, tell us about that going through
Yeah,
college and early
I've been
career. And
in my workplace well, in college, the funny thing is that I graduated in 3.5 years with 6 other chemists. 3 were female and 3 were male. Um,
wow.
it was more of a mix for college, but I was the only person that had a job lined up, and this was December of 2009. So I had a job, and then everyone else, some didn't know what to do, and some were just going to grad school because they didn't have like they couldn't do anything else.
Oh,
And
that
this,
was a tough time to graduate.
yeah,
That was still only a
yeah,
year out from the 2008
right.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
like this job market is way different than that job market.
Wow. I mean, it is I didn't have a job lined up right out of school. So if you want to tell us a little bit about how did you line all that up? How do you think it happened? Because I think that will give some of the people in college some inspiration.
Well, back then, I did a lot of internships, so every summer, actually, I did an internship, and that helped narrow down, like, what I liked and what I didn't like. I did not like pharmaceuticals because like, that semester when I started, there was 6 projects, and when I finished, there was 1, and they just died somewhere in the process over that summer, and I also don't like the timeline. Like, I could be working on something, and then I won't see results for, like, 20 years later because of all the, the trials and stuff that it has to go through to get
Oh,
approved. So and then I worked for Savannah River National Lab for a little bit and did not enjoy working for the government. When I started, they lost all their funding for what I was supposed to be doing.
yeah.
So I got put on microbiology projects. So I was growing hydrogen producing bacteria, and there was like a whole big hydrogen research lab there. And then I was also working on another project to change deuterium into tritium, which is like your hydrogen with an extra ion to make it deuterium, and then two to make it tritium. So that's all hydrogen stuff that I forget at this point. But and then you did ask about the male dominated stuff. My entire career, I've been, like, the only female in the lab. Only female in my group pretty much.
Wow.
It I didn't know until I quit my last job that a lot of the stuff I was going through was not supposed to be happening.
Yeah, because if your whole career is spent in that environment, it's just very normalized for you, right? Until
Yeah.
maybe you start
It's just something
talking
I've
with other
been dealing
people.
with, like, I just have to, like, "Oh, that's just how that person acts," and it's like, "No, that's not how they should be acting." Like, I shouldn't have to take these comments and, you know, have people say stuff about how I look and my body or how like, the sexual comments that people make just because they think it's funny, so and I mean, I didn't know until I left my last job that that's just not normal, like, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, and I think one of the lessons that you shared about you did internships in different industries, that's really useful to younger people exploring, right? Because they have time to figure out the pros and cons of. Because I didn't even think about that with pharmaceuticals, that so many efforts get squashed and it takes years and years. Um, that might be good advice for people still in college. They can go try out different industries and types of jobs and see which one
Yeah.
suits them the
And
most.
I
Yeah.
like the internships over the co-ops because, like, the co-ops, every other semester, you'd go to back to the same company and work, but what if you don't like that company? You're kinda locked in at that point, and
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
it takes
yeah.
you 5 years to graduate that rather than 4 or
You're very sought after. I didn't do any internships or co-ops. And it wasn't for like a lack of trying. I was certainly trying and applying, but you must have had your pick of all these companies trying to get you to work for them.
not really. It's just I took the only one that took me.
Wow. Okay, but you were the only one right out of school that had an offer. I'm just curious, what happens to people that don't get employed quickly? Do they go into teaching? Do they pivot into others? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I've
medical
not been in
school
that
or I don't know
position, so
what
I
they do.
do not know.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was just curious. I'm thinking maybe some of them become teachers or I don't know. Huh.
I think
I
if they
never
go
thought
back
about
to, like,
that.
grad school, they do the teaching assistant type of thing, but I don't know if it
Oh,
just
okay.
I certainly didn't wanna teach. I knew I didn't wanna do teaching or law or there was something else on my list, but that's why I went the science route. But I've always been sciencey and mathy my entire life.
Okay. So back to if you look back at your whole, chemist career, the whole 15 years, that was a big chunk of your life.
But yeah,
Your early life and you're forming who you are, you're figuring stuff out about the workplace, corporate America, working on teams and all that, and growing as a professional. What do you think are your biggest takeaways or lessons learned from that time period, good and bad?
let's see. We'll start with the good. So I worked at the last 10 years I was working at a small company. We were like 30 people for 7 years until we got bought out. So
Tiny.
yeah, so it was, like, usually just me in the lab. So I was doing everything. I got really good at managing all the projects I had, figuring out the time periods of, like, this needs to be done at this time, so I need to start it at this hour, and then that I can take it off before the end of the day, and then I also have to get this report out and, just managing all the logistics of running lab tests and then making sure I start this instrument so I can have enough time to run this batch of samples and making sure the lab was stocked with all the supplies I needed. And uh, it was just a whole lot of like overall operation stuff that I was doing. And then I was also having to prioritize like this project is like the number one priority right now. So I need to push these out to the side a little bit. But then this sample comes in that needs to be tested because they need to ship the product out. So I need to bump everything else again to get this done. So it was a lot of moving stuff around and making sure I got things out in time. And I really enjoyed all that. So that's kind of why I'm trying to pivot into like a data or operation stuff because first the operations I've done the lab stuff forever and I'm really good at seeing processes and trying to improve and speed up things and
Yeah.
I can see where the bottlenecks are and say like why is this like this and what would make this easier for you type of thing. And then on the data side of it, I looked at numbers all day, every day. So every one
Mm,
of my instruments had a different program I had to learn. And then I had to figure out how to make sure all that data coming in was good. I had to make sure that I extracted it properly and then, transformed it into something that the customer could understand. Because you get a lot of these parameters that makes sense to me, but if I give it to someone that doesn't understand how the instrument works, they're gonna be like, "I don't know what this means." So,
yeah.
I gained a lot of knowledge of how to translate all this technical stuff into something that someone that isn't very technical can understand. So that's been very
Yeah.
beneficial to me. And then
Yeah.
the bad stuff, let's see.
Well, not necessarily bad, but I mean, you've learned from it.
I was under a lot of stress a lot of times because I was the only one. So, there was no one to cover for me. So, I had high standards for myself, so I didn't want to let other people down by, like, even using a vacation day sometimes. So and I didn't know that I'm like, I need to just do this because 'cause I'm gonna burn out," and I did burn out.
Weren't you on a team with other people? No?
I was had for a while, I had my boss, and sometimes we had other lab people. but no one really knew my job. There were 2 labs, there was
Well, there was no redundancy,
no
so
no backup.
every person okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, there was, like, 3 people, 2 to 3 people in the lab. It was usually my boss, me, and maybe someone else. Um, so it was a lot for me to do, and I wore a lot of hats because I had to if no one was gonna fix my instrument for me, like, I had to do it. I had to figure all this stuff out. I had to get all the reports out. I had to manage all the samples that were coming in. I had to, figure out the testing parameters from the salesperson and the customers and what did they need? What were they asking for and what did they actually mean? Because sometimes they'd ask for something but not know what they were asking.
Yeah.
And then so I have to say, well, actually you need this test to figure out this problem, not what you're asking for type of thing. So it's kind of figuring out what, you know,
Yeah, you had to translate it to what their need was. How
yeah.
could you help satisfy what they wanted?
And then
Yeah,
sometimes
it
they'd
sounds
ask
like
for something that I don't know how to do, so I'd have to figure out how can I do it with the stuff I have. So,
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of
It also
problem
sounds like
solving.
yeah, you worked at a tiny company, so you had to do a lot of things and figure a lot of things out on the fly and all that. Yeah.
And then once we got bought out, it turned into all this corporate stuff, so I had to go through, like, all this IT stuff just to install a printer, and they came in and, like, installed all this stuff on my computers, and then my instruments weren't connecting, and, like, I had to manage a lot of that when they came in, and then all the lab supply stuff changed, and just a lot of corporate got injected into what I did, and that kinda slowed me down.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that was first 15 years and then you took some time off and yeah, tell us a little bit more about it, the whole sequence of everything cuz you also motherhood came into the picture and then you made a decision to radically well, I don't want to say radically, kind of pivot off
Yeah.
leaving being a chemist.
So, like, about 2 years ago, I was like, "Alright, I've achieved my first career goal. I became a lab manager. I've done it now, but what's next?" I was like, "I want something more now." So, I was talking to my sister, and she's like, "Well, why don't you look into data analytics?" So, that was something I didn't know existed, like, as a job title because I have been in this bubble for 10 years. I didn't really know what was outside of that, and, she said, like, "Start learning SQL, start learning Python," and I've been teaching myself that on Codecademy for a little bit, and then I started learning Tableau and Power BI just on my own, and then I realized, like, well, I've actually been doing data analytics my entire career, that's just not my job title. My job title is
Right.
chemist, not data analyst. So but, my job title as a chemist included a lot more than just data analytics. So, then I got pregnant and I had my son in August of '23, had maternity leave for about 4 months. I came back to work in January of '24. That was quite the transition. Then I ended up having an event where, my boss walked in on me while I was pumping and saw me exposed, and that caused a whole HR incident. Without going into all the details, I did write a post about this, it's in my favorites if anyone wants to check that out, but the conclusion was it was my fault that he walked in on me. So, at that point, I was so incredibly stressed out. I feared going to work. I feared leaving my office, my lab. Um, my milk supply was dropping because of all this stress. I didn't wanna go to work, but I had to, and I felt like I was stuck because 'cause I'm the insurance carrier for my family since my husband has his own business, so I was like, I don't think I can go anywhere without like, I think I'm stuck here until I find a new job because I need insurance." Like, that's where my mind was because I thought I
Okay.
would be a failure if I quit because I wouldn't be providing for my family anymore, so I ended up having a chat with Jess Rangenberg, who's a really great, person, a matrescence expert. I've met her and I had a little talk with her, and she's like, "Well, change your mindset. Why don't you stop saying I can't do this to what if?" And so then we
Ah.
started talking, and Like, I talked with Mark, my husband, about, like, "Okay, these are our finances. What if I quit? What" we did the whole government insurance, and it ended up being about the same cost of what I was paying already through my work. So I was like, "Well, I can do this." And so then I put in my 2 weeks and I quit. And then I felt like this huge weight get off my shoulders, like I could breathe again. Because I knew I was
Yeah.
finding the light at the end of the tunnel. So I I put my notice in so that I'd get like an extra month of insurance. So I did it on like May 3rd would be my last day.
It's okay. Hey, you're thinking, you're planning ahead. I do like that aspect of it, yes.
Yeah, I'm a planner. So I was like unemployed for about 8 months, and that was a whole period of transition where I rediscovered who I was. Like, first it was like, "Who am I without my job?" 'Cause I've never
Yeah.
been unemployed in my entire life like, other than before I started working, obviously, but so for 15 years, I was working straight, and I've never been laid off. I've never been fired. I've only worked 2 jobs really, but I've, been promoted several times over those years. So I didn't know what to do. Like, it was like, what I was just lost. So I had a lot of like coffee chats and just talking to people and just trying to figure out what, I what are my what am I good at? What are my values? What do I want for my next job? Because I was just willy-nilly applying for a while, and I was like, "I don't even know what I'm doing," and so I went through several steps to, like, transform my resume because I knew I wanted to pivot to data or operations, so I was like, "Alright, I gotta get rid of all the science lingo out of my resume because if I say that I did all these calculations on an ICP, an inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer, you're gonna be like, 'What?'" So, I had to I learned how to, like, take the science lingo out of my stuff and put in business terms that I didn't know existed yet. So
Yeah.
I was transforming my resume to language that other people use versus, like, my lab stuff, so that helped get me some interviews, actually.
That's good.
I had one interview with the Birmingham Police for a data analyst job. Had to, like, pay to get my transcripts from high school and college and all this, and then I did my interview, and it was like a real interrogation. It was me sitting on a chair in the middle of the room with 3 people behind a table, and I was like, This is my first interview in 10 years. Is this how it goes?"
Well, that's been quite the experience. We haven't interviewed in a while with the police department, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, and then I got ghosted. I never heard back from them, but it was like a lot of rediscovery basically. So I figured out what do I really want? What's really important to me? Like I need flexibility. I have a son now. I can't spend nights and weekends working all the time. You know, I can't
Yeah.
be on call 24/7 like I was. So I need flexibility. I need somewhere that treats me like a person and not just a cog in the wheel type of thing. I want something with responsibility. Like I really like managing projects and being a point of contact for people. And
Yeah.
I really want something that allows me to use my brain because I love thinking. I love problem solving. I love trying to figure things out and make things better. So that helped me narrow down like what I want for my next thing. And then I just went through this whole journey of becoming a mother too. So if you've never heard the word matrescence, that is something that I learned from Jess too. That's the transformation a mother has when they have a child. So it's kind of like adolescence for a child, but it's matrescence for a mother and putrescence for a father. So
No, I've never heard of this. Yeah.
yeah, so your brain goes through all these different, it's reconfiguring because now you're attuned to this child. You become a different person because you have all these new responsibilities now. You quickly learn how to do a lot more with a lot less time, it seems.
Yes.
You don't have the all the free time you had before, and free time as a, just a couple versus free time with kids is way different.
Yes. Yes, that's very, very true. Yeah. Yeah.
So, during this matrescence journey, like, I found my voice. Like, I'm now speaking up more. I know that I deserve a place in the room. I have thoughts and something to say, and my voice is just as worthy as any other male in this room because that's what I've been used to. I've been used to being the one that has to just just keep quiet because I usually get talked over or something, but I gained confidence, I gained my voice, and I'm willing to speak up now for what I need because if I don't have what I need, I can't support my son. So, it's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
quite the journey, and I am a completely different person now than I was pre-child.
12 weeks, and
So, that was
sometimes they have to
more of
go
a
unpaid for part of it.
there's a story to that too. I
Okay.
had When I was advocating for actual leave when I was pregnant because there was no leave policy, it took 2 months for HR to tell me what the leave was, and he told me it was short-term disability, and if I get the doctor to fill out 16 weeks, then I get 16 weeks. So that's what I did. I had the doctor fill out the paperwork, I submitted it. I also calculated how many vacation days I had, all the holidays, so I knew I had to work right up until I gave birth so that I could have off until January.
Well, look at you advocating for all that. Was it just they hadn't encountered that situation before because they were
There was
small, or what?
this we were an international company at this point. There were and it seems
Okay.
like no one knew what was going on, and there was another lady that worked up in the front in logistics that had just had a child, like, the year before or 2 years before, and it seems like they had no idea what they were doing. So, I advocated for leave. I was following a lot of, parenting companies, like, just learning about what to ask for and what the benefits were and all this, so I could not get anyone to talk to me. I was ready to give a presentation and no one wanted to listen. So they came back and said, "We were working on this and this was something we wanted to do anyway. So we're giving everybody 10 days." 10 days. So it's like that's kind of like a slap in the face. So but they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, but it's so good because the fathers and the mothers get it." It's like 10 days is not enough. So
Yeah.
then while I'm on leave, I find out that I only got 8 weeks because that's all insurance would approve. And then HR calls me and said, "Oh, yeah, they were never gonna approve 16 weeks unless something happened to you." And that's never happened in my career. I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me this when you quote unquote told me what the policy was back then?" And then I pretty much said,
Mm.
"All right, I'm not coming back till January. So figure it out." And then while I was on leave,
Wow.
I got cut off from my email and everything anyways, which because of IT protocols, and no one was informing me of anything. So I almost missed like open enrollment because I got the flyer in the mail, but I didn't get any information about it from my work that I needed to log on to this site and sign up for it. So it
Yeah.
like I asked to be included in any like important information and I was just forgotten, I felt like. And then when I came back, it was like, "Oh, you're here. Here's 4 months of work to catch up on."
Oh, wow. Now I understand more about the circumstances around it. Those have been incredibly stressful, having a new baby
Yeah.
and not being certain if you're still employed at a certain company. Right? And, dealing with all that back and forth and not being able to sign up for benefits. Do you think maybe they were just hoping at the end of that time, or during that time you're just gonna announce you're gonna quit, or maybe that's
Thanks
what they're
I don't
No?
think they thought that. I just think I wasn't there, so they weren't thinking about me.
Okay, sometimes I think some companies, their fear is that people want leave, and then during that leave, they'll announce they're officially leaving, like quitting, and
No,
I
and
think that's why.
I would say most mothers want to come back. They want to work,
I agree, I
but
agree. I
not supported. they're just left to figure it out on their own, and a lot of them don't know what to ask for because they've never been in this position before, and the companies don't know what to do because they've never been in this position before. They don't know how to support the person. So, that's what and I'll mention Jess Ringenberg again, she's doing with all these companies. She's going in and saying, "This is what you need to do to support working parents. This is what you need to do to retain them." Otherwise, there's gonna be a mass exodus because I think the stat is something like 66% of mothers leave within or, like, I don't know, 3 months or something. And so I was part of that statistic. Or I don't know, it was 6 months or something, but anyways, a lot, and it's because they're not supported. So,
Yeah,
needs
how
to be
interesting.
a change in how companies view working parents because we want to work. We want to do a good job, but we need a little bit of flexibility. We can't control that our kid gets sick at school, but we want to still be able to work from home or, come in at an off hour and we will put in the hours to get the work done. Like we need to value, you know, outcomes versus hours on the clock.
Yeah, yeah. When I was about to take my maternity leave, I was up for a promotion and my boss was dragging his feet about the promotion because I think what happened was he didn't think I was going to come back. So he didn't think it was worth promoting me if I was just going to take leave because I did want the entire 3 months off. And I ended up getting it, but I had to really bother him a lot for it. And I think he was shocked that I actually came back to work. But it's all about knowing people's individual situations,
Yeah, it is
right?
exactly that.
People want to blanket assume, especially, of course, I was married at that time, that if you're married, that you're just going to stay at home now because you have a spouse that's working. But that's not everyone. Like you said, you are carrying the insurance for the whole family.
And I want to work. Like, I do not wanna sit at home all day with my child. I I want to I mean, that might sound bad to some people, but I don't wanna do that. I want to
Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Yeah.
more than just playing with toddler toys all day.
Yeah, you have to know yourself really well. Okay, and you also mentioned that your sister helped influence you looking into data analysis as a whole career and industry, and like you're talking about, it's a relatively newer field, and same thing to me. It was kind of shocking when it kind of blew up and became this huge thing. But to go into it more, what else helped you decide that you wanted to go into it, and how did you prepare yourself, tactically, mentally, to go into that and pivoting from chemistry?
So, first, I was like, "Well, I need to know coding." That's what all these job descriptions seem to say, like, I need SQL, I need the BI tools like Power BI or Tableau or and then a lot of them list, like, data warehouse type things, which I've never used those specific programs because a lot of them are
So it's good. You actually read up on a lot of the recs for the type of job you
yeah, I
wanted,
looked at a lot of
which
job descriptions because I had to see, like, what are they talking about? Because I've never heard of a lot of this stuff, and it's been a lot of, "This is the term they use. Have I done this before?" And a lot of times, yes, I have. I just didn't call it that. So
yeah.
and I did this whole chemistry and data series on LinkedIn, and that kind of explained a lot of how my skills actually overlap because 'cause I've been doing this my entire career. I just had different names for a lot of things, and I didn't have these exact programs that they were using, but I had the, science-y versions of it because all my instruments were using these type of things. I was using, a Metrum ion chromatograph specific software that had, this huge data warehouse of every sample I've ever ran. I've used it before, yes, but in a different sense than they're looking for, and I can learn it. Like, every single one of my programs, I had to teach
Yeah, you
myself.
did your research really well. I remember you reaching out one time, which I think a lot of people should note, because you have to do your research, but you have to like iterate and self-reflect. Because I remember you asking me, how did I know certain things? And I remember answering, I learned them at work. I didn't learn any of this stuff in college. But then
Right.
you're like, well, how do I learn it if I can't get the job where I can learn it on the job
Exactly.
that everyone's requiring? Is kind of the conundrum, right? And I was like,
Like,
yeah.
you gotta have healthcare experience to work in healthcare.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
and
a
it's like
lot
if
of the
people
jobs
just gave you the chance, and that's what I was telling you is like I learned a lot of this just from working, not really from college or Like, I wish I could tell people that it was some Udemy or Coursera course, but no, no, it wasn't. It was really just from working. So yeah, you did a lot of research. You took some courses. What else did you do?
So I used a lot of ChatGPT to say like, okay, these are my skills. And I did like a huge dump into it of like everything I could think of what I've done historically and at all my jobs. And so then I'm like, all right, have I done ETL before, which is extract, transform, and load? And a lot of resume or job descriptions are asking for this specific skill. And it's like, well, yeah, you've done this. You take the data from the instrument, put it into tables and manipulate it, and then you present it to the customer. So yes, I've done that, but I've never call it that in my life. Because I didn't know this term existed. So I'm having to decipher these job descriptions so that I can tailor my resume to say, yes, I do have these skills. Another one is, like, root cause analysis. I've done that my
Yeah.
entire career too, and that's figuring out, what is this sample I have, and how do I fix it so that the pipes stay clear of it, this like a solid or something. What do I need to dissolve it so that my system flows? And I've just called that, "What is the unknown sample?" And so, I'm learning a lot about what these quote unquote business terms are to be able to say that I have the skills because I think there's a lot of disconnect in not having the official job title of data analyst and then people are like, well, why would a chemist be applying for this job? Like, I don't know what a chemist does. They just pour stuff back and forth on TV.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So tell us more about the 8 months that you were unemployed, looking for employment. Like, were you looking for employment the entire time? Were you, also enjoying some other things and, of course, motherhood? But, yeah, tell us about what that time period was like, 'cause there's so many ups and downs, right, of being a person looking for a new job, and I think also compounded by you wanting to pivot industries and fields too, it makes it even more difficult.
So first I had to deal with a lot of the comments like, "At least you get to spend time with your son." And it's like, "Well, he's still in daycare. There is no way I can search for a job and manage an infant and a toddler running around screaming like whatever he's saying." And, finding a job is a full-time job nowadays. So that was like people were like some were just like, "That's weird." It's like, well, we can still afford it, and I know he's thriving in daycare, and then I can focus on what I actually need to do to get to the next job. So that was one thing. I was down on myself for a lot of the time. I had to get over and accept that, I'm allowed to have this time off, and it's not even I don't know if I wanna call it like a sabbatical like you called it, but it allowed me to figure out what's next for me. I did pick up some, like, freelance type stuff, just my husband's bookkeeping was terrible, so I've reworked all that so it's more automated, and he's not the greatest at Excel, so I had to break things down and explain, like, "All right, this is how you do it. This will populate here, and then that'll do your calculations over here." I'm actually working on vibe coding an app for him to do, quoting for his customers. That's been my little side project right now. That was kind of an after thing, not during those 8 months, but I did a lot of coffee chats with people, just learning about other people 'cause I've been, like, alone a lot of this time. I didn't have a lot of time to, like, go meet people and stuff, so I've met a whole lot of people, like, I met you, I joined the Society of Working Moms, I've met a lot of people on there, and it's just been, like, transformative for me to learn about all these people and learn about all these, like, job titles or fields that I've
Yeah,
never really experienced, and, what else? I think that once I started talking about what happened to me, I stopped feeling as bad. I started hearing other people's stories about what they went through, and it's not more of, "Well, your story is worse than mine." It's just I'm a victim too. I experienced something bad. So hearing other voices allowed me to, yeah, like, speak about my experience, and
yeah.
just writing all of that out got it out of my head because it was just playing on repeat in my head.
It was stewing and
Yeah,
ruminating.
right.
I think it probably also made you feel less alone.
It did, yes. So just as I was writing the story out, because I was just kind of voice texting it into a Word document on my phone a lot of the times, just and so I noticed that my brain stopped. Wherever I stopped, it didn't ruminate on the before, like the stuff that I had already written down. It just kept going where I ended. And then once I got down through the whole story, which I think is like 5 pages long if my entire story, and then I stopped, like, thinking about it all day, every day, like, it was really weighing on me, and then I shared my story on LinkedIn, and I got all these comments about how this happened to me too, and I didn't know that, like, other people were going through this too, and a lot of people were, like, afraid to speak up about it, but thanked me for sharing my story because it helped them feel better.
Yeah,
So, I didn't know it would have that kind of effect on people, but it
it
really
really
helped
does.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and it's so funny because, you kept asking me like, "Well, why should I be on your podcast? I have nothing to say, nothing incredible about me." But it's really the simple stories, not simple stories, it's just normal people sharing what's happened to them that I think is so powerful. And I think that leads me into talking about because you've also been on LinkedIn probably just as long or maybe even longer than me.
I've been on, like, a
And
decade.
oh, you've been on there way longer of actually
It's
producing content.
well, no, actually, it'd probably be, like, college I started my LinkedIn.
Oh, but more like passively, like being on there and it's kind of evolved.
Yeah,
And I noticed you made a comment the other day that you said you liked LinkedIn better this year. Um,
then last year.
yeah, yeah, I want to talk about it a little bit with you because I want to hear what you think about it because I think also LinkedIn has shifted. I think it's shifting more to just normal people, like you're saying, not always talking about business content or job or career
Right.
stuff. It's more like the fun stuff and showing more of your personality. And during this time off, I've been kind of not experimenting, but just not really producing the same type of content like I always did. It's not always money related. And I've been finding that's really resonating because I think we're just more okay with like showing more of parts of yourself, being more authentic. It doesn't have to be so polished every single
You don't have to be
post. It
a
doesn't.
buttoned up business professional, like, you're a person, you
Right.
have a life outside of your work, and that's what I think people are enjoying more, is just seeing the actual person behind the business face.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I think we got cut off in our chat the other day, but I was gonna ask you how popular that post where you were, like, in a jersey at work did compared to maybe some of your other ones.
That one did way better than I ever expected, and
I
I
know,
wasn't
that's
even,
what
like,
that was my guess.
trying.
I'm like, "That one was gonna blow up." I was like, "'Cause it's a real picture of you." I mean, even though, yeah, you were at work, but it was kind of fun, and it's not irreverent, but it's not like the normal stuffy, like, "Oh, here's a life lesson," or, "Here's a business lesson from my story."
So I guess football season just started, and I don't watch football, and that jersey is, like, 25 years old at least, and that's the only football thing I have, so I was like, my work has to be business casual, I guess, so I have to dress up every day, which is super annoying, plus I had to buy a whole postpartum wardrobe because my body's different now. Um, so it's like, well, my work allowed me to wear jeans on a non-jeans day because we can wear jeans on Thursday and Friday, which is our work from home days. So
Or no one can see it, but it's okay.
exactly. So I got to wear jeans and a sports jersey. They wanted like a professional, like an NFL type of thing, I think, but that's the only thing I had. So that's what I did. A lot of people were doing Alabama and Auburn because that's really big here, and I just stay out of that mess. So that's kind of what I posted, and then I was like, well, the only reason I liked this team was because it was green, and green is my favorite color. And the rest of my family rooted for Michigan, which is maize and
Mm.
blue, and, so I was the only one wearing green, and so that gave me the childhood nickname of the Frog, and my entire family, like, bought me frog stuff for, like, Christmas and my birthday, and little statues and Christmas ornaments and whatever. They just suddenly decided I liked frogs because I like green. I don't like frogs, and I got rid of all of that stuff when I moved out. That was basically that story. I just like the team for the color, not the sport ball part of it. And then think I said I like baseball better, which is baseball's way better. So I have a lot of autograph balls and cards, and been to like 13 MLB stadiums, and I need to go to the
Okay.
Texas Rangers still. So that's on my.
But yeah,
I've
that's
been
an
to
impressive
Houston
one.
Astros. I know that's your area. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what do you think you've gotten out of posting, engaging on LinkedIn? Because you're on there probably just as much as I am, which is a lot, probably compared to other
way too
people.
much.
But yeah, you don't have a business. You're not trying to promote or sell anything. So
I
why
just
would
tell myself to find a job.
well, I like that. I like that attitude. Yeah, I think I always tell people, it's you. You're selling more than anything else. You don't need to promote for a multi-million, billion-dollar company.
And
That
that's
can be good enough in and of itself.
like the whole open to work banner debate. Like, use it. You need to sell yourself to companies just as much as companies need to advertise to you to sell their product. So it's the same thing in my opinion.
I love that reframing of it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because it's just, I always encourage people, why not be on there? And same thing when I was in my job searching phase, I did the open to work, and yes, it attracted
It will
some
attract
scammers,
scammers,
and
yes.
yes,
They're
and
usually
it
just
attracted
lying.
some, yeah, weird people in my messages trying to sell me something. But overall, I think the good outweighed the bad because I was telling people sometimes I would get approached by recruiters about jobs that I didn't necessarily want or maybe I wasn't qualified for. But then I could go quickly look through my LinkedIn network. I'm like, and I would be thinking of who would be a good fit for that job. And the fastest way to know if they're still looking is that open to work,
Exactly.
right?
And I know
Yeah.
a lot of recruiters or just people that hire, like my sisters hire a lot of stuff. Taylor Desson, that's a guy I follow that's recruited for years. They don't always use the LinkedIn, hiring version, because it's really expensive. So they look at that open to work banner, and they'll target people that they know are open to work because they're going to get a faster response. And
Good to know.
you don't need to have all these resume builders and stuff that people are trying to sell you. There's plenty of resources online. You have AI available too. Don't use the AI platforms that mass send out your resume, but I'm just saying, like, use AI to help transform your bullet points to support the job description
I totally agree.
versus
Yes.
just,
Yeah.
you know, spray and pray.
Yeah, when I did a big rewrite and I would feed it through the AI tools, it wasn't great at doing the resume. But if
Right.
I fed in maybe a bullet point that I thought was a little too wordy and too long, and I wasn't sure someone understood it, I would feed it in there, and it would really help me kind of
Yeah,
copyright it.
you can ask it like, "I need this to be shorter. I want it to be more impactful with this
Yeah,
information, and what kind of metric can I use for this?" And then I can try to go pull something. So it just helps that way, but don't use the resume programs. My sister has said that she's seen word for word lines on multiple resumes because she knows they're coming out of ChatGPT, like, with the same exact metric, like 20%
mm,
whatever. It's like, this is not right.
it's not fooling anyone.
Yeah.
Well, as we're running out of time, I would like you to tell people how did you end up fighting your job? Because I think they'll give people a lot of hope because you did have this whole 8 month cycle and you're pivoting industries and careers and all that.
Yeah, this one I actually was contacted by a recruiter. So it's just a contract position. It is ending in December, so I am actually looking for my next gig, but it's right now I'm working as a measurement analyst for Kinder Morgan. So across the entire United States, there's gas pipelines, natural gas, that is. So that's what's coming out of into your house for running your stove or your furnace or, whatever gas equipment, maybe your fireplace or your grill or, um, so all these pipelines have, little entrance and exit points. And wherever there's gas coming into or out of the system, there's a meter there. And that meter has to measure the gas. And there's also stuff for the temperature and pressure and flow rate and all these different parameters that are measuring the gas, I guess. And then there's also gas chromatographs, which I'm familiar with from my chemistry days of measuring the gas quality. So what is in the gas? What is the chemical structure? All your hydrocarbons basically. So I'm making sure that all these meters are reading correctly. I have about my territories over Georgia, and I have about 450 meters that are feeding me data points every hour. They're aggregated from the minute to the hour, and there's parameters that are set. So if it's over a parameter or under a parameter, it will throw an error. And then I go investigate, like, why is this data getting flagged? Is it something that's just a one-off thing and maybe it's just a little bit over the limit, or is something wrong? And then if something's wrong, I have to say, okay, it looks like it stopped working at this point. The trends are off. This might be going bad. And then I communicate with the technician about how to, this meter needs to be fixed because the pressure's off. And then he'll go and investigate and something like that. So it's a lot of data to look at, but I'm ready for my next thing.
Yeah. And no shame in contract work at all. I will say that.
I've
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed just learning the new system, and, I've actually taught my boss things, and he's been here 35 years about stuff about the program that he didn't know, and, like, my entire team has been there 30 to 47 years, so there's a lot of experience, and I've learned a lot from them. But then I come in and I see stuff that they don't because they've been
Yeah,
doing
you
it
have
this
fresh
way
eyes.
forever. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Why do we do things this way? Because it will be faster if we do it like this." And they're like, "Huh." And then my boss can submit Jiras to make things
Okay.
faster, or get that group to change the program to make it better. So
Yeah. And I feel contract is a good way to kind of scope out an industry or company before you fully commit. Because, sometimes you sit in these interviews and people really want you to say you're going to work there the rest of your life. And it's hard to know that. It's hard to know where life will take you or what will happen. But where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or talk to you after this?
LinkedIn, that's the only social media I have. I think it's like Katie Ryder Hall. I didn't change my last name, so I'm still Katie Ryder, but my husband's name is Mark Hall, so that's why I have the Hall in there. Because I thought about changing my name. So, anyways, I'm just on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I'll answer DMs, I'll chat on your posts, so I have fun on there.
Yeah. Yeah. We could have went into so much more. There's so much advice you could give people and all that. So yeah, reach out to her. But thank you so much for being on. And this was such a good conversation. And I'm so glad that so many people will get to know you so much more through this. And I'm so excited to see what happens in your future, regardless of, where you work at, and just see what else goes on with all your interest in all the things you have going on in life and that you like to write about. That's why I love following
Oh,
and
yeah,
reading
I'll
your
I'll post all
content.
my food creations, and
But yeah, she cooks too. We did not even get into that also.
we
The
forgot
game boy.
well, we just ran out of
Yeah, the gaming and the
we
cooking.
could
There's so
probably
many
go
other
on another
aspects to
couple
Katie.
hours.
Yeah, but that's why you should go follow her, because she's not just doing just necessarily business or job seeking content at all. It's like
No,
just
big
you, your
baker,
life.
big just cooking in general, board games, toddler.
Cats?
Yeah, oh
You had
yeah,
your
cat.
cats in the background?
Got Selena back here. She's sleeping. Bruce was the black cat, and Harvey is the orange one brain cell cat.
Yeah.
Him and the toddler get into a lot of trouble together.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.